Hello everyone. It's a beautiful day today in Athens, so it's great to see so many people inside Zapion, but I'm sure you're going to be very much excited about what's coming ahead, in front of you, and in the next sessions, because this year's Olympia Forum is really exciting. We have great speakers here, great sessions, and we're just about to start the next one. My name is Kostas Papachlimidis. I'm a journalist, both in newspaper Parapolitica and in TV Earth, the public national broadcaster, and I'm very happy to present the mayors, which will take part in our next session. Mayors from Greece, from Cyprus, and from our friends in the Balkans. First, we'll start with Kostas Bakoyannis, Mayor of Athens, who's going to address us via video message. And then I will give the floor to Jordana Fandakova, the Mayor of Sofia in Bulgaria. Nicos Nicolaitis, next of me, Mayor of Limassol in Cyprus. Erion Veliach, Mayor of Tirana, he will be joining us via Skype. And Perparim Rama, the Mayor of Pristina in Kosovo. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for attending we are on line our session. I think we can begin by watching the video message that Kostas Bakoyannis was kind enough to send us, Mayor of Athens, Greece, Mr. Bakoyannis.
Ladies and gentlemen and dear friends, it is a true privilege to join the Olympia Forum, even from a distance. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome to Athens my colleagues. I am sorry that I cannot be there with you. As you know, C40 is holding its annual summit. It's actually the first post-pandemic annual summit, literally on the other side of the world. And I'm especially and particularly sorry because I was very much looking forward to this discussion. After all, if you think about it, a mayor's challenge is all about who we really are. So let me take a moment and reflect, because you know, this is a lovely story from the 1960s. President Lyndon Johnson was apparently at a difficult point. There was a lot of stress, there was a lot of pressure. It was, for those amongst you who remember the history of the United States, a time when there were a lot of protests against the Vietnam War. And so the story goes. And it's apparently true. A point came in time when he literally held his head and said, well, things could have been worse. I could have been a mayor. And you know, well, he might have been a bit pessimistic because he might have just been focusing on the difficult part of our job. After all, this is, I think, and this is not an overly self-serving point, one of the most difficult jobs in the public sector. But at the same time, what he didn't focus on is the positive side. Because this is, after all, at the same time, the most exciting and the most satisfying job in the Greek public sector. And not only in the Greek public sector, I would say, in the public sector all around the world. Let me explain myself. A mayor has to have three things. Number one, he has to be able to work bottom up. He or she has to be close to the people. One cannot insulate oneself. One cannot put distance between oneself and the people. Because if you do, you're bound to fail. Don't forget that a lot of what we do, it could be as small as a pothole, or it could be making sure that our cities are clean or well lit. It's all those small things that define our daily life. Number two, a mayor is not judged by what he or she says, but by what he or she does. It's all about the end result, which, by the way, has to be tangible, has to be real, which explains, by the way, why, think about that, why populists are not successful as mayors. And number three, a mayor is about transcending ideological, partisan, political lines, even transcending one's ego in building coalitions. Oftentimes, the problems we face don't have an ideological or political special weight. Oftentimes, It's about real problems that necessitate real solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our challenge, and this is our purpose. Number one, to work bottom up, build bridges with society, and stand next to the people. We must not wave our finger. We must always give a hand. Number two, it's about the end result. It's about the visible, tangible end result. And number three, it's about creating coalitions. These moments of unity are that actually transform our cities. Once again, I would like to welcome you to Athens. I'm looking forward to seeing you again very soon at the B40 Summit in January. Till then, stay safe and be well.
This was the message by Mr. Bakoyannis, and we would like to thank him very much for this. And now we move forward to our floor here, and we start with Mrs. Fandakova, the mayor of Sofia. If I'm not mistaken, the first woman to hold this position. So congratulations for this. And I would like to give the floor for first remarks from our fellow mayors here, and I would like them to emphasize on this particular period that we live in, and the energy crisis that is looming, and how the mayors and how the cities cope with it. Because I think it was a U.S. House of Speaker who said, all politics is local, and politics on energy crisis is local as well. Ms. Fandakova.
Kalimera. I will speak in Bulgarian. Please take your tools. Първо, много се радвам, че видях и чух кмета на Атина, моя уважаван колега, който сподели вижданията, мисля, на всеки един от кметовете. Благодаря за поканата на Олимпия форум. Това ни дава възможност да сме заедно с моите колеги кметове от други балкански градове, да споделим предизвикателствата, но и да потърсим решенията. Наистина най-важната тема в момента е енергийната криза. Тя е важна за всеки един от нас, от домакинствата, от хората, през градовете до нашите държави. Енергийната сигурност днес е основата, на която се гради стабилността на градовете и на държавите. Жителите във всеки милионен град, каквито са и Атина, и София, потребяват ежедневно огромни количества енергия, за да може да се обезпечи нормалното ежедневие на хората. Затова и кризата с цените на енергоносителите, която продължава вече почти една година, постави огромни предизвикателства пред всички нас, не само пред правителствата, но и пред градовете. Ние първи се изправихме пред огромния ръст на публичните разходи, породен от скока на енергията и горивата в последните 12 месеца. Ние сме длъжни да гарантираме обществения транспорт, да гарантираме уличното осветление, отоплението на училищата, на детските градини, на болниците и, разбира се, топлината в домовете на хората. През последните години аз и моя екип, заедно с всички наши партньори, инвестирахме и изпълняваме мащабна програма за модернизация на градския транспорт в София. Заложихме предимно на електротранспорта. Разширяваме метрото, продължаваме вече за поредна година. Хората в София обичат своето метро и го подкрепят. Модернизираме наземния транспорт. Инвестирахме в нови трамваи, тролеи, електробуси. Заменяме дизеловите автобуси, замърсяващи околната среда, с газови такива. Въведахме много иновации и дигитални решения, за да можем да привлечем повече пътници в обществения транспорт и по този начин да гарантираме по-чист град, по-чист въздух. Но в последните месеци кризата с горивата се отрази много сериозно на публичния транспорт. Само за няколко месеца, в края на миналата година, сметките за електроенергия в метрото нараснаха повече от 2 пъти. Сметките за газ на нашите автобуси нараснаха с 300%. Това наложи, разбира се, допълнителни разходи от общинския бюджет, за да можем да подкрепим нашия публичен транспорт. 40% от приходите от данъци на нашите граждани насочихме към стабилизирането и гарантирането на градския транспорт. Това, разбира се, ни лишава от други инвестиции в изпълнението на други задачи. От 1 юли тази година Народното събрание взе решение и държавата започна да компенсира небитовите потребители с добри компенсации, които са както за бизнеса, така също и за нас, общините, за публичните разходи в общините. Това ни даде доста добра подкрепа. В същото време, за съжаление, нямаме никакви компенсации за газ. Затова основните ни усилия сега са насочени към защита и на тази подкрепа, защото с газ се движат не само автобусите в градския транспорт, с газ се отоплява голяма част от населението в София през общинското дружество, което топлоснабдява целия град. Но това са ситуации, пред които сме изправени, предполагам, всеки един от нас. И както каза и кмета на Атина, ние трябва да намираме решения, а решенията се намират, когато има разговор, когато има диалог, когато има партньорство между държава, местни власти, бизнес и граждани. По този начин се опитваме да се справяме. Разбира се, имаме и големите възможности за инвестиции в възобновяеми енергийни източници. Това за нас сега е новия фокус. София в нашата страна е лидер при подготовката и при възможностите да направи такива инвестиции. Подготвили сме проекти за изграждане на соларни панели, на възобновяеми енергийни източници в 100 училища, в инсталациите за отпадъци, в столичния зоопарк. Вече имаме пилотни проекти, които дават добри резултати. Така че за мен новия фокус, който можем да изпълним благодарение и на плана за възстановяване, е това и усилията ни са насочени изключително сериозно натам. Чух днес цял ден, слушам за възможностите, които има Гърция чрез плана за възстановяване. За съжаление, нашият все още не е действащ, но е приет, така че очакваме и в България да можем да се възползваме от тези инвестиции, за да гарантираме една по-чиста околна среда, една зелена и иновативна София. Още веднъж благодаря за поканата и се радвам, че ще мога да чуя и опита на моите колеги.
Thank you very much for this. Just a short question. I think recently you were present when the IGB, the interconnector between Greece and Bulgaria was inaugurated. So you have a new path for transferring gas from Greece to Bulgaria with this pipeline that I think it ends in Sofia. Is that right? If you have a few words to share about this and in general about the how much Bulgaria is connected and is connected with its neighbor countries vis-a-vis gas.
Всъщност откриването на новата газова връзка между Гърция и България даде огромния шанс за това да сме по-спокойни днес. Първо, след спирането на подаването на газ от Русия през месец март, ние изпаднахме наистина в трудна ситуация. За радост имахме и други възможности и доставките на газ не спряха. Сега обаче с новата газова връзка, с контактите, които има между България и Гърция, имаме не само гаранцията за количествата газ, които са необходими за България и за София, но цените започнаха и да се понижават. Така че нашата радостна новина от този месец е, че цената на газа за нашите дружества падна този месец. Разбира се, това не може да компенсира предходните месеци с тези високи цени, но се надяваме да продължим разговорите с нашето правителство, така че да могат да се компенсират. Но да, газовата връзка е огромна възможност и огромно постижение за всички нас.
Thank you very much again, Mrs. Fandakova. Now we move on. Next to me is Mr. Nicos Nicolaitis, the mayor of the beautiful coastal town of Limassol in Cyprus, and a very experienced politician. You've also been a representative of in the parliament, a minister in the government, and so on and so forth. Please move on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Papachlimidou. Thank you for the invitation to be here and share our views, our suggestions with fellow colleagues from other European cities and, of course, with the rest of the experts who participate in this prestigious forum. I will speak in Greek. Allow me to speak in Greek. Ποιος είναι ο ρόλος των πόλεων σήμερα στην αντιμετώπιση των μεγάλων προβλημάτων? Νομίζω αν είναι κάτι που χαρακτηρίζει την εποχή μας σήμερα, είναι ότι υπάρχουν προβλήματα τα οποία είναι σε παγκόσμιο επίπεδο, είναι global προβλήματα. Είτε αυτά τα προβλήματα αφορούν την παγκόσμια οικονομική κρίση, την ενεργειακή κρίση, την κλιματική αλλαγή. Είναι προβλήματα που απαιτούν λύσεις σε επίπεδο global. Ταυτόχρονα όμως αυτές οι λύσεις απαιτούν εφαρμογή, οι οποίες αναπόφευκτα περνούν μέσα από τις τοπικές κοινωνίες. Άρα εδώ θα πρέπει να υπάρξει ένας ρόλος των πόλεων και μέσα από την διπλωματία των πόλεων, αλλά και μέσα από συνεννοήσεις με τις εθνικές τους κυβερνήσεις, να βρεθούν αυτές οι λύσεις, αλλά και αυτές οι λύσεις να περάσουν, να υλοποιηθούν με τον πιο αποτελεσματικό τρόπο. Υπάρχει μια προϋπόθεση για να μπορέσουν οι πόλεις σήμερα που καλούνται να διαδραματίσουν ένα πολύ σημαντικό ρόλο, να διαδραματίσουν αυτόν τον ρόλο τους. Αυτή η προϋπόθεση είναι η οικονομική τους δυνατότητα. Πρέπει να έχουν τους πόρους οι πόλεις αυτές που να μπορέσουν να διαδραματίσουν αυτόν τον ρόλο. Υπάρχουν διαφορές μεταξύ των πόλεων σε όλη την Ευρώπη, σε όλο τον κόσμο. Υπάρχουν πόλεις, για παράδειγμα, οι οποίες έχουν μια κρατική χορηγία που υπερβαίνει το ύψος του 60%. Υπάρχουν πόλεις, ιδίως στην Νότια Ευρώπη, όπου αυτή η χορηγία είναι πολύ κάτω του 10%. Υπάρχει όμως ένα γενικό γνώρισμα σε ό,τι αφορά τις οικονομικές δυνατότητες των πόλεων. Συνήθως αυτές οι πόλεις, αν εξαιρέσουμε κάποιες πόλεις με πολύ δυνατή ισχύ σε ό,τι αφορά την οικονομική δυνατότητα, έχουν οικονομικές δυνατότητες από την κρατική επιχορήγηση σε πολύ κατώτερα επίπεδα από τις δυνατότητες τους να συμβάλλουν στην επίλυση αυτών των προβλημάτων. Αν θα ήταν να επιλέξω κάποια συγκεκριμένα προβλήματα που απασχολούν τις πόλεις σήμερα, το προεξάρχον πρόβλημα, θα λέω εγώ, είναι η οικονομική κρίση. Η οικονομική κρίση και η συνεπακόλουθη κοινωνική κρίση και τα προβλήματα που δημιουργούν. Αυτή η οικονομική κρίση δημιουργεί την ανάγκη για μια αυστηρή διαχείριση σε κεντρικό επίπεδο, για μια αυστηρή δημοσιονομική πολιτική. Ταυτόχρονα όμως, επειδή δημιουργούνται κοινωνικές ανάγκες, οι πολίτες στρέφονται και ζητούν κοινωνικά αγαθά και υπηρεσίες από τις τοπικές τους κυβερνήσεις, από τις τοπικές τους αρχές. Άρα πρέπει να βρεθεί η χρυσή τομή και κάθε χώρα καλείται να βρει αυτό το σημείο ισορροπίας μεταξύ της αυστηρής δημοσιονομικής πειθαρχίας, του κεντρικοποιημένου ελέγχου, αν θέλετε, της διάθεσης των πόρων, αλλά ταυτόχρονα και της παροχής προς τις πόλεις των δυνατοτήτων να ασκήσουν αυτή την πολιτική στο επίπεδο το δικό της που είναι τόσο απαραίτητη. Το δεύτερο πρόβλημα το οποίο αντιμετωπίζουν οι πόλεις αυτή τη στιγμή είναι η αντιμετώπιση κοινωνικών φαινομένων όπως είναι η παράνομη μετανάστευση, η ανεργία. Ενώ αυτά τα προβλήματα θα πρέπει να αντιμετωπιστούν αποτελεσματικά και σε επίπεδο ευρύτερων οργάνων όπως είναι η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, αλλά και σε επίπεδο κρατών, για παράδειγμα η παράνομη μετανάστευση θα πρέπει να σταματηθεί στα σύνορα. Οι πόλεις καλούνται να αντιμετωπίσουν αυτά τα φαινόμενα, τα οποία βρίσκονται εντός των τυχών. Δηλαδή, μετανάστες οι οποίοι είτε είναι νόμιμοι και πρέπει να ενσωματωθούν, είτε είναι παράνομοι και βρίσκονται, έχουν παρισφρήσει στις πόλεις και πρέπει να αντιμετωπιστούν. Είναι ένα πολύ πολυσύνθετο πρόβλημα. Δεν έχουν οι πόλεις ένα προδιαγεγραμμένο θεσμικό ρόλο, έχουν όμως το πρόβλημα στα χέρια τους που πρέπει να το επιλύσουν. Άρα εδώ πρέπει να δοθούν θεσμικές αρμοδιότητες στις πόλεις για να μπορέσουν να αντιμετωπίσουν αυτό το πρόβλημα. Το τρίτο σημαντικό πρόβλημα που καλούνται οι πόλεις να αντιμετωπίσουν είναι θέματα που αφορούν κλιματική αλλαγή, ενεργειακής κρίσης, βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης γενικότερα. Είναι προεξάρχοντα προβλήματα και εδώ αναδεικνύεται ουσιαστικά και ο ρόλος των πόλεων. Για παράδειγμα, σε θέματα κλιματικής αλλαγής, οι πόλεις είναι οι αρμόδιοι φορείς που θα λύσουν στην ουσία μέσα από αστικές δράσεις αυτά τα προβλήματα. Οι πόλεις οι οποίες καλύπτουν το 4% της χερσαίας επιφάνειας του πλανήτη μας συμβάλλουν όμως σε ένα ποσοστό πέραν του 70% στην ρύπανση, στην εκπομπή διοξιδίων του άνθρακα. Άρα, μόνο μέσα από αστικές δράσεις θα πρέπει να λυθούν αυτά τα προβλήματα. Δεν είναι τυχαίο που η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, αναγνωρίζοντας τον ρόλο των πόλεων, προωθεί προγράμματα όπως για παράδειγμα το πρόγραμμα των 300 πόλεων, το Mission Cities, το οποίο συμμετέχει και η Σόφια. Έχει επιλέξει 300 πόλεις η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, 100 πόλεις με συγχωρείτε η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, οι οποίες 100 πόλεις θα λειτουργήσουν σαν ένας προπομπός για μετάβαση στην κλιματική αλλαγή 10 χρόνια, 20 χρόνια πριν τον στόχο της Πράσινης Συμφωνίας που είναι το 2050 για κλιματική ουδετερότητα. Αυτές οι πόλεις θα πρέπει να γίνουν κλιματικά ουδέτερες μέχρι το 2030. Θέματα ενεργειακών θεμάτων. Ναι, πρέπει και σε κεντρικό επίπεδο να υπάρξουν προγράμματα για μια πιο σωστή, αν θέλετε, ισορροπημένη ενεργειακή διαχείριση, αλλά και οι πόλεις να συμβάλλουν, ούτως ώστε αυτά τα προβλήματα, αυτά τα προγράμματα να αγκαλιαστούν και να υιοθετηθούν από την κοινωνία των πολιτών. Είτε αυτά τα προγράμματα αφορούν την χρήση των ΑΠΕ, είτε αφορούν ηλεκτροκίνηση, είτε αφορούν οτιδήποτε άλλο. Ο ρόλος των πόλεων στην διαμόρφωση και στην προώθηση αυτών των προγραμμάτων είναι καθοριστικός. Ιδιαίτερα δε σε ό,τι αφορά την ενεργειακή απόδοση των κτηρίων, για παράδειγμα, όπου οι πόλεις που είναι και πολεοδομικές αρχές μπορούν να προδιαγράψουν ένα πλαίσιο κινήτρων που να βοηθήσουν την κίνηση προς αυτή την κατεύθυνση. Και μια τέταρτη πρόκληση είναι το θέμα που αφορά τις νέες τεχνολογίες, την καινοτομία, την απορρόφηση και την προώθηση της ψηφιακής μετάβασης. Εδώ πρέπει να πούμε ότι υπάρχουν πόλεις και πόλεις διαφόρων ταχυτήτων. Ένα καθοριστικό στοιχείο και μια πρόκληση μεγάλη και μια ευκαιρία μεγάλη είναι πώς θα μπορέσει να απορροφηθεί αυτή η εμπειρία που έχουν οι προηγμένες πόλεις από τις πόλεις οι οποίες δεν είναι τόσο προηγμένες στο στάδιο αυτό. Και σε αυτό τον τομέα ασφαλώς υπάρχει ένα τεράστιο έδαφος για συνεργασίες μεταξύ πόλεων, ούτως ώστε να βοηθηθούν οι λιγότερων προωθημένες πόλεις από τις πιο προωθημένες πόλεις σε αυτόν τον τομέα. Γενικά, ζούμε στην εποχή ουδέποτε στο παρελθόν οι πόλεις ήταν σε καλύτερη θέση να διαδραματίσουν και να καλούνται σήμερα οι πόλεις να διαδραματίσουν ένα πρωτεύοντα ρόλο στην διαμόρφωση των ευρύτερων πολιτικών του πλανήτη μας. Χρειάζεται και μια θεσμική ενίσχυση τους και ασφαλώς μια ενίσχυση των οικονομικών δυνατοτήτων και των πόρων των πόλεων για να μπορέσουν να διαδραματίσουν αυτόν τον ρόλο και να συμβάλλουν με δημιουργικές, αν θέλετε, προτάσεις, με μια σκέψη έτσι έξω από το κουτί, να βρεθούν λύσεις σε αυτά τα προβλήματα που ταλανίζουν τον πλανήτη μας, αλλά ασφαλώς και τις τοπικές κοινωνίες που είναι ευθύνη των πόλεων.
Θα σας ρωτήσω και εγώ στα ελληνικά, λοιπόν, κύριε Δήμαρχε. Ευχαριστούμε καταρχάς πάρα πολύ για την τοποθέτησή σας. Θα αξιοποιήσω και την εμπειρία σας που έχετε και στην Ελλάδα, έχετε εργαστεί, δεν το ξέρουν πολύ στο παρελθόν, όχι τόσο μακρινό παρελθόν, στην ΔΕΗ, τη Δημόσια Επιχείρηση Ηλεκτρισμού, και στην Κύπρο, στην Αρχή Ηλεκτρισμού της Κύπρου. Η Κύπρος μαζί με την Μάλτα είναι τα δύο κράτη νησιά της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, 2 από τις 25 χώρες, που έχουν λοιπόν, εξαιτίας του είναι νησιά, έχουν την ιδιαιτερότητα της μη διασύνδεσης με τις υπόλοιπες χώρες. Δεν είναι το ίδιο εύκολο η αγωγή, τα καλώδια ηλεκτρισμού. Τώρα γίνεται προσπάθεια με το EuroAsia Interconnector. Πώς αυτό το πρόβλημα μπορείς να το μετατρέψεις, αν μπορείς, σε πλεονέκτημα, ή πώς μπορείς να το προσπεράσεις για να έχεις ενεργειακή αυτάρκεια, επάρκεια και χαμηλές τιμές.
Πέρα από την διασυνδεσιμότητα που είναι ένα must και πρέπει να γίνει, η ενεργειακή απομόνωση των χωρών μας αναδεικνύει ασφαλώς την ανάγκη για προώθηση των ανανεώσιμων πηγών ενέργειας. Ένας είναι ο δρόμος. Δεν υπάρχει άλλος δρόμος. Πρέπει να αφήσουμε την χρήση των συμβατικών, αν θέλετε, πηγών καυσίμων για να οδεύσουμε προς τις ανανεώσιμες πηγές ενέργειας. Αυτό θα πρέπει να γίνει και σε κεντρικό επίπεδο και στην ηλεκτροπαραγωγή από τις εταιρείες παροχής ενέργειας, αλλά και σε επίπεδο, αν θέλετε, βάσης της κοινωνίας. Και οι οικογένειες αλλά και οι επιχειρήσεις μπορούν να αξιοποιήσουν τις ανανεώσιμες πηγές ενέργειας και να συνδεθούν με το εθνικό δίκτυο διανομής, ούτως ώστε να συμβάλλουν σε ένα πιο βιώσιμο ενεργειακό ισοζύγιο.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nicolaitis, for this. We move forward and we welcome Mr. Erion Veliach, the mayor of another neighboring country of Greece, Tirana, in Albania. He will be joining us online. And Mr. Veliach is also, he moved on from central government politics. He was a minister of social welfare and youth to local administration, and is now the mayor of the capital of Albania. Very nice to have you with us, and welcome, Mr. Veliach.
Γεια σας and greetings to everyone. Thanks for having me there. Εγώ ξέρω πολύ λίγο ελληνικά, so I will switch to English because it's probably safer for me that way. I wish I was there in sunny Athens, beautiful Athens. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in travel, so this boring hotel room will be my backdrop, but I think the ideas are still the same. It's interesting that the most common word used by everyone, including my brother Costa from Buenos Aires, was the word crisis. And I always wonder about the Chinese word of the word crisis. It's only two lines. It's the brushstroke of two lines. One means danger, because in every crisis there's a lot of danger involved. You can ask the mayors in Ukraine, and I'm sure they have a lot to say about that. But the other stroke of the two brush strokes in the Chinese word for crisis, the other one means opportunity. So within these two strokes lie both the danger and opportunity. I've been mayor for 7 years. I remember my first year in Tirana, it hadn't rained for 181 days or something. And all the experts said, don't worry, Mr. Mayor, a drought like this only happens once in 100 years, and eventually it will rain. So I waited for the next year. It did rain, but it rained so much. We had constant flooding. It felt like I was the mayor of Venice for a year. And it would not stop raining. And then again, the experts say, who always surround policymakers and mayors and ministers, they say, Mr. Mayor, we checked the weather history. Once in 100 years, we have floods like this. So you're going to be fine. It will stop raining one day. I said, okay, fine, great. The third year, we had massive fires. I know Athens and Greece went through massive fires a few years ago. So the experts were saying, well, look, it's happening in Greece as well. And look at Australia and California. Apparently, once in 100 years, there's crazy fires everywhere. So I said, okay, well, maybe the inferno will stop. In my fourth year, it snowed in the Mediterranean. It snows in some of your cities, but not in Albania, not in Tirana at least, close to the coast. And again, the expert, it hadn't snowed that I could remember since when I was a kid in the 80s. And again, the expert said, well, look, a snowfall like this every once in 100 years is perfectly normal. And of course, the trolls, that every mayor has a big group of fan base of trolls. They were like, where are the snowplows, Mr. Mayor? You haven't prepared for this crisis. And then the next year, we had the terrible Albania earthquake in 2019, as you remember. Literally, the last earthquake of that magnitude happened in Albania in 1905. So again, the expert said, don't panic, you'll be fine. Once in 100 years, the tectonic plates of the Balkans need to stretch. And therefore, we have an earthquake, terrible earthquake like this. I said, okay, where does this stop? And then, of course, we had the pandemic, which literally happens once in 100 years, since the Spanish flu in 1918. And then after that, we, of course, had the war. And the war not only in Ukraine, but a war that has affected all of Europe and, as a matter of fact, the whole world. And, it's been over 70 years, almost 80 years since the Second World War. So we thought we'd never see what our grandparents saw, a war in the soil of Europe. So it feels a bit like we're living in the Old Testament, and I'm waiting for 3 more plagues to have the 10 plagues from the Old Testament to complete this scenario, and maybe locusts will come in a wave. But jokes aside, this crisis also provides massive opportunities. We have never been able to get so much done on bike infrastructure as we did during the pandemic. where people could not move and there was a quarantine, and sort of the only sort of way to do short trips was with safe bike lanes. We were never able to do so much licensing of electric taxis. We moved all of our fleet of the municipality to electric vehicles, as much as we've done in the recent years. And of course, if the mayor has an electric car for long distances and rides a bike for short distances, it's so much easier to preach to the rest if you also live by that particular example. We have seen now in the current crisis and the huge energy spikes that there are ways to save, but there are also ways to protect the most vulnerable. We've got the central government who's putting a cap on protecting and putting a limit to the energy price so that the family users feel protected. We just passed a bill yesterday in the city council where all the students will get a free bus pass, so they can use all the 25 city lines for free. And as Enrique Peñalosa, the mayor of Bogota, used to say, it's a matter of vision. Do you expect, or your vision is that eventually students, young people, or people with modest means eventually become rich and get a car? Or is your vision to even get some of the rich people and the wealthy people to also switch to bikes and buses? So I think making the right decision on a lot of these fronts, sure, it has some financial consequences, but there are so many things that we can do without money. Now, me and my brother preparing there, unlike our wonderful friends from the other cities, we're not members of the European Union. So a lot of the funding that is accessible to Athens and to Limassol and to Sofia for metros and trams and fleet overhaul is clearly not as available to non-EU members. But sometimes just by switching certain laws, for example, the law on getting a taxi license, you can wait for 2 or 3 years for a medallion to be free, or in the city of Tirana, you get a medallion in 24 hours if you have an electric vehicle. And I think there's tweaks that we can make to our bureaucracies that make it an incentive, lowering VAT or customs free on some of these vehicles makes a huge incentive for people to buy something that is, in the short term of equal price, but in the long term saves so much more, particularly on the rising fuel prices. There are some neighborhood initiatives which I think are very worthwhile exploring. Again, yesterday we passed a large bill for something that we call a community fund, in which we pay 50% of the cost of retrofitting and making it climate resilient every public building, private building in Tirana. So if you live in a flat, we will pay 50% of the fee, and the flat owners, the apartment owners, will pay the rest. It's not an issue of money, but when people pay a little bit and contribute to their own retrofitting and energy saving scheme, then the project is not vandalized. It has a longer lifespan, and it's not the same as, people treat government investment as a job the government has to do anyway. But once they are in, then we see that it's done with higher quality because they all become supervisors, but that we also see that in the long term, it is better protected and better taken care of. Now, we're also blessed. There are some strategic investments with all the goodwill of the cities of Athens and Tirana and Pristina and Sofia and Limassol. Some decisions are made at the top. So for me and the mayor of Limassol, who made the transition from central to local government, we understand the drill. And I think it was a strategic decision for the Trans-Adriatic pipeline to go through Greece and Albania and then southern Italy, despite the populist resistance. So I really feel that, the biggest threat to us is populists. Is people who, unlike mayors who get the job done, this is people who spend endless hours in parliament explaining why things cannot be done and comment on the job of other people. We need practical and pragmatic solutions like the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, diversifying our portfolios, find ways where people can get energy efficient schemes, but also contribute a bit so they value it more, and come up with solutions that cost no money, like the bike lanes, which are extremely cheap, but if they are done well and protected. In the beginning, people were whining and complaining, and they were saying, "Oh, Mr. Mayor, but we're not Amsterdam, we're not Copenhagen." But Amsterdam was not Amsterdam, and Copenhagen was not Copenhagen in 1973 with the OPEC oil crisis. It's not in their DNA to be on a bike. And by the way, it's in all of our DNAs to walk and run, just like it's in the DNA of a fish to swim or the DNA of a bird to fly. It's only the last 100 years that we're stuck in a metal box called the automobile. So speaking of DNA, no country is more advantageous. But those societies realized that dealing with OPEC, dealing with a cartel was impossible. And mayors have no say in dealing with cartels. So they said, let's adapt. And let's go to a tool of mobility which cannot be taken hostage by people in the Gulf and the sheikhs who decide their oil prices or their oil production. So my 2 cents on this: if it can be done in Tirana, a non-EU member, a country that was the Pyongyang of the North Korea of Europe until a few years ago, and if some of these changes can happen fast and rapidly, and we use every crisis as an opportunity, we could get so much more done than we thought before when things were at peace and the 10 plagues from the Old Testament did not hit our cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. I think I've shown great leadership, and I'm pretty sure that within, I don't know, maybe a few years' time, they will say Tirana is better than Copenhagen or Amsterdam, and that will be the example, Mr. Mayor. Now, last but definitely not least, Mr. Peparim Rama, the mayor of Pristina in Kosovo. The floor is yours.
Greetings to all. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with all of you here in beautiful Athens, beautiful sunny Athens. Energy crisis, obviously it's impacting everyone at the moment, and because of geopolitical aspect, more so than any other time, any other recent time. But I think the idea of energy in terms of cities needs to be looked at it as a holistic approach. Like, it's not simply about how much we're paying for energy to heat ourselves or to cool ourselves. It's also about the energy that we spend every day, waking up, going to school, going to work, taking our children to school, entertaining ourselves, and so on and so forth. So it's about, I think, holistic approach on how we plan our cities, how we deliver on our promises, and how people feel in places where they live, in their everyday life. So it comes then down to how secure people feel, because in terms of energy prices, let's say the higher the energy prices, the less secure we feel about the future. But also there are many other dimensions, many other levels within cities that we live, within everyday lives, that increase this sense of security. And the sense of security, it's kind of directly linked to how empathetic we feel towards each other, towards nature. The less secure, the more closed we are. The more secure, the more open, empathetic, and cooperative and collaborative we are, and we feel. So the everyday, I think that, at the city level, obviously the everyday matters. The processes that we undergo from the moment we wake up to the moment we come back, to sleep, that every day matters in terms of, people's lives and the future of people's lives in the cities, but also the countries that we live in. Several aspects. I come from, I'm an architect from, architecture and urban planning background, and I think that, the experience that we have has a direct impact on our subconscious, how we feel and how we, live every day. So in terms of several layers about sort of this multidimensional approach to creating the security, for example, in terms of energy, Pristina, the capital city of Kosovo, we have district heating, which kind of covers maybe 25% of the city. And the problem with the district heating, I mean, it is actually a great asset, but on one side, but not such a great asset on the other side, because we are burning coal. We're sort of burning lignite to create energy, and obviously that's a great pollutant. So a shift towards more sustainable energy needs to happen, and one of the processes that we have undergone now is creating a project which is called Solar for Kosovo, with the help of KfW, we're creating sort of 35 megawatts on the first phase of solar paneling system that connects directly to the district heating system that will provide initially 12,000 more households that will be heated with this process. And shifting towards sustainable energy, I think, is obviously the vision of the Eurovision, the European vision, but also the vision of our city, because we need to, again, align our policies in order to then have access to the funds as well. So 2030 vision, European vision of clean and green. We obviously, in order to be able to get resources, get help, we need to align to these, and we understand that, and this is one of the largest projects in the region and second largest in Europe that we're undergoing. The second phase would be to add another 40 megawatts to it, and this would then be additional to 280 megawatts that the city provides currently as well. In connection with that, I think a large building stock, the existing building stock, the existing fabric is poorly built, uninsulated, another strategy is that at least now the first phase, all the public buildings that are within municipal sort of ownership, we're undergoing retrofitting through insulation, through solar power panels at the roof level. At the same time, the previous issues that we've had and that we continue to have with materials such as asbestos, which create, again, another health issue for our citizens. So we have this double positive approach. We remove the asbestos, provide with the solar paneling, and then create another opportunity to at least have access to clean and green energy. We're talking about here maybe minimal interventions that actually have a large impact, I think, in the citywide. The idea of, let's say, the densification of cities, and kind of controlling the sprawl. I think cities, many cities, but Pristina also in this aspect. We've had, after the war, we've had a huge sort of exponential growth in the private sector, and the public sector has been largely unable to keep up with the private sector demand. And so we have a large diaspora as well, that after the war there was this huge urge to invest back in Pristina, in Kosovo. I'm talking Pristina in this aspect. And this huge pressure, that is obviously positive pressure. All the cities would love to have that sort of pressure, a demand for development, for investment. But again, unless you control it, unless you have means to control it, it can become a cancerous growth. And what has happened, for example, in Pristina, but I'm sure in many other cities that I have been involved previously as well as a consultant, but now as the mayor for Pristina, what you find is that the huge private growth, when it's not matched with the public sector. So, for example, when you don't provide adequate schools, infrastructure, healthcare, spaces of like sports spaces, cultural, and so on and so forth, you have a lot of energy waste. And when I say energy waste, for example, parents have to get their children from these areas, drive them back into the city center, create chaos through the city, stress themselves out, stress the children out, obviously huge stress in the traffic and so on and so forth. So you can see the circular aspect, the circular negative aspect. So the cities need to be...
I don't want to interrupt you, but we have to wrap up a bit.
Sure.
Because we're very, very short of time.
So the idea of thinking about cities as kind of organisms, that we need to tackle them in a holistic approach, so multidimensional approach, so not focus, let's say, only on one sector, is the key to having clean, green, livable. And also the digitization aspect is very necessary. We need access to data. We need to plan with data, with real data, with proper data, in order to plan with proper calculations, rather than blindly, as a lot of cities do that now. So I think clean, green, and digital is the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rama. We are definitely running out of time now, and we have to move forward. Thank you very much, and all of you who are attending here and via Skype, and of course, big thanks to our organizers, the Delphi Economic Forum and Patrice Newspaper, and a very happy birthday to Ms. Gerafedi, one of the core members of the forum as well. Thank you.